Namaste, yogis. Thank you for joining me. This is video 3 of my Seva project for my 300-hour online yoga training. We still have 18 pages of stories behind poses, so let's get to it. Vajrasana, or thunderbolt pose. There was once an asura whom could not be defeated. Devas asked Brahma for a way to make Vajra's defeat possible. From Brahma's advice, the Devas asked all the rishis for one of them who was completely detached from meditation, so they could sacrifice them and use their body as a weapon. Dadichi agreed with Indra, king of Devas, to be the sacrifice. The Devas used Vajra's bones after removal from his body to create Indra's infamous thunderbolt. It is said the thunderbolt can cause monsoon clouds and create rain. In Buddhism, an awakening into Buddhahood is seen as accidents making versus accidents prone, striking the believer as lightning strikes earth. So it's an accident happening instead of being accident prone. Many compliments to Buddhism are gods, goddesses of deities shown holding thunderbolts. And Vajra is a Sanskrit word for lightning bolt. We will now pause like we did in video 1 and 2 for a moment to reflect upon the story. We will do this for every story. And you can, of course, take the time to ask any questions you have about the myth behind the pose that we are discussing. Parvatasana, or mountain pose. Atop a snow-covered mountain sits Seva, who is married to Parvata, who is the daughter of the mountains. She was known to release the heat in Shiva, which takes the form of knowledge, the arts, and rivers. In Tantric Buddhism, Goddess Tara, copulating at the top of his sativa, evokes volition. These are metaphors for hermits to engage with material reality in a householding manner, such as the union of husband and wife. And the reason why these metaphors exist is because it is important to be a householder and a hermit. In Indic mythology, Mount Meru, or Mount Mandar, is to believe to be the center of the world, and we will get further into that in some other stories too. Mount Meru, the center of the world. The 32 Devas sit atop Mount Meru, and the Asuras live below at the base of the mountain. The continents were believed to have spread from Mount Meru like the petals of the lotus flower. In Jainism, Jinas acquire omniscience on top of the mountains. This is typically where monasteries and Jain temples are built as well. Even in the Bible, down the slopes of Mount Sinai was said to travel the word of God. Siddhasana, or the pose of the accomplished. Siddhaloka is where one becomes all-powerful and all-knowing by breaking free of the material world and immersing themselves in a spiritual realm. Siddhaloka is mentioned in Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism, with some differences in meaning. Realizing spiritual reality is the goal of Jain yoga. In Buddhism, realization of essential nothingness is the goal of yoga. In Hindu yoga, the goal is union with the cosmic soul of the divine and of God. Siddhas were considered something like sorcerers and were valued in India for a long time. Sanadhi is in many yogic schools seen as a union with the cosmic soul. Siddhas are considered free of the wheel of rebirth, and their tombs are called Samahai. So we talked about previously, maybe video 1 even, of the Wheel of Rebirth, and how it is a pig, a snake, and I forget the other one. Dang. Oops. The conflict between... Oh, there we go. Okay. The next pose. We will move on. Bhairava-asana, the pose of the fear remover. Shiva, on top of Mount Kailas, heard Brahma, upon awakening, chasing the goddess Deva, infatuated by her. Brahma had grown 5 heads. Shiva transformed into Brahmana and cut off Brahma's 5th head. Brahma, the creator, then reconsidering his actions, his mind had stretched, seeing the world for what it was through the rishis, or the 7 rishis that he created in his mind. They say Brahma falling victim to hunger and fear. The rishis saw yoga through Shiva as Bhairava as a means to remove fear and hunger from Brahma. Words like mine and your were human inventions to claim ownership over nature through human ego which seeks to own possession. After beheading Brahma's 5th head, Shiva also became known as the skull-bearing sage, Kapaliki, wandering the world with Brahma's skull seared onto him. He eventually gets his skull to fall off, and as Kashi, so Shiva becomes guardian of Kashi, in the city Kashi. Bhairava, as guardian, is found in Hindu and Jain temples. Bhairava is also the protector of the Tantric Buddhism, often visualized copulating with Shakti in Hinduism, or otherwise known as Tara. So, Bhairavi is Shiva and Tara is Shakti. Keep that in mind. And the next pose we will discuss is Svanasana, or the dog pose. Shiva and his fears of Bhairava form especially is associated with the dog and wild bull, or fearsome. The dog itself is associated with crematoriums and garbage and kept outside houses in Hinduism. The metaphor to take away here is that the dog embodies the fear and insecurity destroyed by Shiva as Brahmana when he cuts off Brahma's 5th head, as Brahma is born from the lotus and becomes infatuated with goddess. Also that Bhairava is the protector of the goddess Devi as Shakti. Shiva is said to embody wisdom and calm the frightened dogs of our mind. And in the Buddhist Jatakis, king of Varanasi orders all dogs in the kingdom to be killed. And this is a story. He doesn't order the palace dogs to be killed, but he commands this order because a leather chariot harness was destroyed. And the Buddha, to be reborn as a dog, asked the king for proof it was the other dogs that did it. The king has no proof, and the royal palace dogs end up vomiting the harness by the Buddha's command. And this brings about the teaching that there is need of proof in the matters of injustice. We'll pause for a moment, reflect on dog pose. If you have any questions, please comment any questions that you have, and or anything you want to say about these stories. If you're enjoying them, you can comment on that as well. Virabhadra-asana, or the pose of the righteous warrior. Now, Shiva was once a hermit traveling the world with nothing, like a true vagabond, and Sati, against Daksha, her father, and his wishes, married Shiva. So Dakshi, angered, invited all the gods at a yagna to receive offerings, and this angered Sati, who sacrificed herself before her father's eyes at the yagna in a great fire. Shiva, enraged upon hearing of Sati's sacrifice, transforms into Virabhadra and commanded an army of ghosts and goblins into Dakshi's ritual hall, where he beheads Dakshi. After calming, Shiva restores Dakshi's head to that of a goat. This gave the idea and metaphor that territorial and possessiveness are more animalistic qualities than that of a human or a god, and that is why Shiva revives his head. But he gives him that of a goat to punish him, and for that remindance that he was acting animalistic towards his daughter and keeping her as a possession. Nataraja Asana, or the dancer's pose, will be the next pose we discuss. Shiva is known for stillness, sitting atop a mountain, and movement as a dancing householder. Shiva's world is beyond space or desha, time or kala, form or rupa, and the name or nama, and Shakti's world is within all these limitations. I threw a lot of words at you there, so I'm going to reiterate them. Space is desha, time is kala, form is rupa, and name is nama, and Shakti's world is within all these limitations, where Shiva's is not. Thus, when Shiva travels as a hermit in his world to Shakti's world, he becomes a householder, embodying movement. A communication from Shiva reveals the Vedas when he comes down from the mountaintop and the wives of the sages chase him, angering the sages enough to summon a tiger, serpent, and a goblin. Once they were defeated by Shiva, his dancing movement revealed his divinity to the sages. The Vedas are about the knowledge and wisdom to overcome hunger and fear. It's said that the soul is neither created or destroyed, but immortal. Therefore, it can't fear death, as it is the true essence of yogic philosophy. And we will pause. Shavasana, or the corpse pose. Until the goddess Kali dances on Shiva, he was a dead body according to goddess mythology. Only when the soul enters the body is when it experiences hunger, the desire to live, and fear. Shiva is considered lord of the ghost or disembodied spirits. And a question that is often asked is, did matter or spirit exist first? This is a great discussion in Hindu mythology, which creates which. We should keep in mind the ability to imagine the past and future without being present in either. And that's something you can take away in your daily life, to imagine your past or your future. And you don't got to really be present in either. You just take that lesson and you roll with it. Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, they represent the disembodied spirit in different stages. Thusly, the gods need the goddess to inhabit life, and the goddess needs the gods to enliven her. So the goddess needs the gods to enliven her, and the gods need the goddess to inhabit life, because the goddess is the world. Skandasana, or Skanda's pose. The world was once threatened by the Sura Taraka, so the gods convinced Shakti to marry Shiva so they could conceive a child powerful enough to destroy Taraka. The tale goes Taraka had a boon with the gods that he could only be killed by a 6-day-old child. As such, he was sure of his invincibility. But the gods knew a child of Shiva and Shakti could possibly do the deed. Distracted, Shiva ejaculated on the Shakti, and the gods collected the semen. And the boiling hot semen was passed from god to god until it was tossed in a river. And in the river it cooled enough, and it spawned 6 children, whom the six-star goddess Kartikeya nursed. Shakti merged the six children into one powerful being of many names, one being Skanda. Skanda led the gods into battle and defeated Taraka. Doing good, about halfway done with this video. We might get through the poses in time. The Shammukhi, or Shammukhi Mudra Asana. If Shammukhi will erase fear and Ganesha hunger, then the sons of Shiva are said to grant us liberation. In one tale, Agni, the fire god, seduces 6 of the 7 celestial sages, which you might remember in video 2. Their children were cast out and collected by Agni's wife, who merged them into one being, Kartikeya. Kartikeya is also known as Murugan, and on top of the mountain, he battles with his mother, Katreva, or Charmunda, with the spear in ancient Tamil traditions. And due to different geology and histories and Hindu mythology, this story has been known to change over space and time. So it is it's very lucid, and it changes a lot depending on who you hear it from. The 6 heads of Kartikeya can be a metaphor for the chakras of the spine. I've got 12 pages. Marurasana, or peacock pose. In Hindu mythology, many of the gods mount or ride animals. As such, there is an association of the animal and the god. Kartikeya, Shiva's son, was known to ride the peacock. On Mount Kailas, Shiva rides a serpent, and his 2 sons ride a peacock and a rat. Because there is no hunger on their mountain, the peacock and the rat do not eat each other, and neither does the serpent. Heaven of Shiva echoes the biblical concept, the lion shall lie with the lamb. And the 3 heavens are those of Indra, Shiva, and Vishnu, or the Hindu Trinity. The heaven of Indra has wish-fulfilling cows, trees, and gems, so our hunger is indulged. In Vishnu's heaven, we take care of other people's hungers, or other existing beings' hungers. In Shiva's heaven, people outgrow hunger, or that worldly desire of hunger. There's also constant war in Indra's heaven, because the Asuras want what Indra has. Gajasana, or the elephant pose. In the Puranas, Shiva never wanted children. However, Parvata did. Shiva beheaded Parvata's child, not realizing she molded a doll and breathed life into it. Shiva wanted to help his inconsolable wife, so he asked his followers to bring him the first animal head they encountered. Shiva, using the head of an elephant, placing it on the child and bringing him back to life, named them Gajavan, who would later lead Shiva's wild companions, the Gavas. The vehicle of Indra, a severed-trunked, 3-paired tossed elephant, was said to emerge in the ocean of milk. Thus, it's associated with royal power. The sexually aroused bull elephant is associated with lust. And Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, sits on a lotus flower in a swamp surrounded by elephants who spray water, and the water is symbolic of rain, fertility, and prosperity. In the Jatakas, Buddha, as an elephant, gives his tusk voluntarily to a greedy hunter, representing the wisdom of detachment. And in another Buddha story, Buddha gives away a rain cloud, attracting elephant. And even though he was a prince, he was thrown out of his kingdom for his generosity when the kingdom became drought-stricken without their magical elephant. Matsyendra Asana, or Matsyendra Nath's pose. A special school of yogis from 1,000 years ago who were celibate and traveled Earth with few possessions were the ones who popularized physical yoga. They were called the Nath, or split-eared yogis, as they had a special earring splitting the ear cartilage. Their chants were representations of calling for Shiva, and they used their bodies as instruments to unite with the divine. They all considered Dattatreya to be their guru, and there was originally 9 Naths. Dattatreya, who is considered to be a form of Shiva, or Trimurti, which is Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. The most popular Nath was Matsyendra Nath, who overheard Shiva explaining yoga secrets to the goddess. There's a story of a childless woman asking Matsyendra Nath to help her bear a child. She was told to consume ashes given to her, but not believing it, threw them in cow dung. And this bore the child known as Gorak, protector of cows. You can guess what story we're going to discuss next. Maybe you got it. It's Goraksha, or after Gorak. Goraksha Asana, or Goraksh Nath's pose. Gorak is protector of cows. Gopala means caretaker of cows. Goraksha Nath, a yogi who was said to protect sense organs from sensory stimuli from being carried away. Goraksha Nath protected his teacher from a sensory trap, and this famously made him considered to be greater than his teacher by many. As the story goes, Matsyendra became entranced and trapped in a forest with a woman who was cursed to never be able to be around men or conceive a child. This woman was cursed by a king she had laughed at when he was flying over her naked. However, Matsyendra was such a strong yogi, he was not turned into a woman upon meeting this woman. Pramila, the cursed woman, trapped him by overcoming his senses. Goraksha, dressed as a woman, entered the woods and convinced his teacher to leave by repeatedly killing Matsyendra and Pramila's child and resurrecting him over and over, showing his teacher the powers that lay outside of the forest. Once Goraksha Nath found a prince whose hands and feet, in another story, had been cut off, and he was tossed in a dry well. The prince had been accused of outraging the king's wife's modesty, and without evidence the king acted and cut off all his limbs. Goraksha Nath restored Prince Puran's limbs, knowing that he had not done what he had been accused of, because Puran was chanting Shiva's name from the well, and Goraksha Nath knew him to be a yogi, and he must be just if he's a yogi, right? Puran became a student son of Goraksha Nath and was renamed Charanga Nath. Alright. Dandasana, or staff pose. Dandapana is a guardian god of Kashi, an Indian city who serves Bhairava and carries a staff. Vedic god Varuna is the god of mortality, and Vedic god of Yama is the god of death, who also determines our fate. Both of them and Vishnu have all been shown to carry Dandapani's staff. Kings who carry staffs are supposed to be moral, like Varvasa, detached like Yama, and establish Dharma like Vishnu, which is all basically a good way of saying that these kings that carry staffs are supposed to be good. Yogis are known to carry staffs with symbolic meaning as well. I'll pause. Once again, if you have any questions, always ask away. I will comment and get back to you with any answer that I have available to me. The next pose we will discuss is Anantasana, or Ananta's pose. Adi Ananta Shesha is the cosmic serpent. Adi means primal, Ananta means infinite, and Shesha means residue. So primal, infinite residue. So the serpent is said to embody time and has neither beginning or end. Vishnu is reclined or seated on Ananta on the ocean of milk. As Vishnu is awakened, the world comes into being, but while asleep, the world ceases to exist. This is the Hindu worldview of objective and subjective reality. Ananta accompanies Vishnu when he descends to earth as Lakshman, Ram, or Krishna. Ananta is said to coil around Mount Meru, the center of the earth, and used by devas and asuras to churn the ocean of milk. This churning caused Ananta to spit a poison that could only be consumed by Shiva. This video will, however, run over a half an hour, so we'll have a bit less time to do some physical practice of yoga in video 4, but I imagine we'll get done and we'll have about 20 minutes of yoga practice after I'm done presenting these stories. Garudasana, eagle pose. Vishnu flies around the world on an eagle named Garuda, king of the birds. Garuda was said to take the nectar of immortality from Indra's paradise and not drink a sip, thus displaying his integrity, which is why Vishnu rides him. Garuda stole the nectar from Nagas, or the serpents, to free his mother, Vinata, who was enslaved by her sister Kadru. Garuda is also known to evoke the bird's eye view and the strategic gaze of humanity, and the serpent evokes the worm's eye view, or the tactical view of humans. In the Ramayana, Garuda frees Ram from serpents shot by Magnet. In the Mahabharata, Krishna rides Garuda to defeat the Asuras and Indra, king of Devas. The pose itself is a depiction of Ram bounded by snakes on the battlefield of Lanka, where Garuda eats the snakes and frees Ram, allowing him to save his wife from Magnet, who is Ravana's son. And if you remember, Ravana is the one who captured Seva, Ram's wife. Malasana, or garland's pose. Vishnu's garland is made of leaves and flowers. Shiva's of seeds of the Rudraksh plant, which can be a metaphor of Shiva's transition from hermit to householder, from the goddess and embodied in Vishnu. Vanamali, who drapes forest flowers around their neck, is another name for Vishnu. Vajayanti is another name for Vishnu, meaning he who wears victory garlands. These garlands indicate participation in the world and life. Shiva's garland represents potential, and Vishnu's is the realization of potential. Chakrasana, or the real wheel pose. Vishnu is visualized as having 4 arms, and in each hand he holds something: a mace, a lotus flower, a conch shell, and a wheel. Vishnu's wheel is known as Sudarshan Chakra and has the likeness of a boomerang known to sever heads. In one tale, Vishnu beheads the demon Ranu, who had drank from the nectar of immortality. The demon was also an asura. When Shiva rode into the battle of the 3 worlds, his chariot was earth, with the sun and the moon as wheels. In Buddhist, Jain, and Hindu mythology, the chakra or chariot represents space. The The center is Mount Meru. It is also representative of the cyclical nature of time, meaning everything is repeated. In Hindu, the idea is life is consistently moving towards death and rebirth. All right. Balasana, child's pose. In Hindu, the world is said to go through cyclical phases of creation and destruction. Markandeya saw a premonition of the death of the world where everything became submerged under the sea. The sage also saw a banyan leaf holding afloat the infant Vishnu. This reassured Markandeya of not only the destruction but recreation of the world. Children are said to evoke parental affection, and this emotion is what gave Markandeya the belief in the earth's rebirth after his premonition. Matsyasana, or fish pose. Matsya Nyaya, translated equivalent, is law of the jungle. In one tale, boy Manu was asked by a fish to keep him safe. As such, Manu put the fish in a jar, and the fish grew when he was placed in a larger jar and a larger jar and a larger jar to keep him from being eaten. Eventually, the fish was big enough to go out to sea. He promised to come back to Manu. This fish was Vishnu, and when the world was ending by floods, he returned to Manu and promised to steer and transport Manu's boat to safety. The boat carried important plants, seeds, and animals from the world. This is representation of the strong protecting the weak so they can in turn help others. In the Jatakas, the Buddha to be was a fish who could summon rain during droughts and who could help other fish escape fishermen' nets. And in Jainism, the fish is the 18th jina of this eon. Nabasana, boat's pose. When Ram is exiled from his kingdom in the Ramayana, he traveled by boat. A sage named Parasara is ferried across the river by a boat in the Mahabharata by the name Satyavata. They fall in love and they have a child. The child is magical and conceived before the boat ride is over and also grows up before they reach their destination. This child becomes Vyasa, the great compiler of the Vedas. Krishna travels by boat with his 8 queens in Dwarka. The boat is a symbol of survival in the material world. In Jatakas, there is a tale of a prince, Mahajanaka, traveling by boat to seek fortune. During a storm, he ate a big meal and remained calm while everyone panicked. Thus, he survives starvation. And when recognized as the Buddha to be, he was brought to shore by Manimagala, goddess of the sea. All right. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. We have 12 stories left. I'm going to try and get it done in about 10 minutes. Karmasana, the turtle pose. The Jatakas Buddha was said to be a turtle in his previous life. As a turtle, he rescued a shipwreck crew by letting them on his back and taking them to an island. The turtle then allowed the starving sailors to eat him with infinite passion. In Jainism, the turtle is a symbol of Sarvat, a jina who lived in the time of Ram. And in Sanskrit, tortoise is called Kashyapa and is also considered the base of the earth and a symbol of longevity. In one story, Vishnu, in the form of a turtle, uses Mount Meru in the middle of the earth to churn the ocean of milk. This is done by Brahma's advice in order to help the Asuras who could no longer find happiness, and in churning the ocean of milk, they bring happiness back. Varahasana, the boar pose. In the Puranas, the Asura drags the earth under the sea until the boar emerges from the nostrils of Brahma and gores the Asura, killing her and raising the earth to the surface of the sea again. This intimate embrace is said to have created the mountains and valleys of earth. The tusk impregnating earth created plants. So this is another theory for how plants were created. If you remember in video 1, there was another myth behind that. This boar of legend was called Varaha, who is an avatar of Vishnu. This boar is a symbol of vitality and royalty. In Jainism, the Varaha is the symbol of Tirthankara Vamalnath. In some stories, Buddha's last meal was poisonous boar meat, but because many people believe Buddha to not eat meat, some stories say it was mushrooms, as Buddha was known not to eat meat. So, pause. Any questions, please comment. And we are almost done, folks. Another 5-10 minutes, we'll wrap up the stories, and then we will do a brief physical yoga sequence and the final video. And I know this video is running longer than a half an hour. Just bear with me, and we will get through this and onto some yoga practice. Simhasana, the lion pose. The goddess Durga is known to mount the lion. The king's throne in India was called Simhasana, or lion throne. The lion is associated with kingship across the world in many mythologies. Vishnu took a composite form of half lion, half human to defeat an asura. His name in this form was Narasimha, as Narasimha, the divine, shatters the human construct of form. So Vishnu, as Narasimha, shatters the human construct of form because he is half lion and half human. Once a cow asked the king to protect him from a lion that led to an argument between the lion and the king, where the king offered his body as food. The lion said it would not be enough to keep him fed. This brings attention to domesticated and wild spaces, a recurring theme in Hindu mythology. In Jainism, the 24th Jina has a lion as a symbol, and the Jatakas, the Buddha to be, was also a lion. And this pose can be imagined as lotus going into a cow position. Ganda Barunda Asana. When Narasimha consumed the blood of the Asura, he lost memory of his divinity. So Shiva, in the form of an 8-legged lion named Sharabha, overpowered Narasimha. Vishnu then appeared before Shiva as Ganda Barunda, an enormous 2-headed eagle, to rid Shiva of his arrogance he gained from overpowering Krishna as Narasimha. Shiva is said to represent the hermit side of the divine, and Vishnu the householder side of the divine. Trivikami Asana. There was once an Asura so powerful he conquered the earth's atmosphere and the sky. That's right. Vishnu, in the form of a dwarf, took advantage of the arrogant Asura, who offered to grant people whatever they desired. The dwarf asked for 3 pieces of land, and of course he granted it, and so he transformed into a giant, claiming the earth, sky, and atmosphere, showing the Asura the power of divinity. With his third step upon request, he crushed the Asura's ego. So the Asura asked him to crush his ego because he had been shown the power of divinity. The 3 worlds in Hindu is the sky, atmosphere, and earth. In the Puranas, it is the celestial realm of the Devas, the subterranean realm of the Asuras, and the earthly realm of humans. So there's the Devas in heaven, the humans on earth, and the Shuras down below. And the Puranas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We got 8 stories left. Let's get it done in 5 minutes, folks. Vajrasana, throne pose. The Buddhist Jatakis, Hindu Ramayana, and Jainism tell the tale of the Ramayana differently with variation, but they all three point to Ram being the epitome of Dharma. Ram is the only king Vishnu ever takes the form of incarnation. In the Ramayana, Ram is exiled right before his coronation. In the Jatakis, Ram was 14 years prior to leave, was told 14 years prior to leave for the forest and not return for exactly 14 years. The king dies and Ram's brother Bharat begs Ram to return on the 9th year. In Jainism, Ram leaves the forest to ensure his brother, who wants to be a monk, stays in the palace. In all three tales, though, Bharat places Ram's sandals on the throne and resigns himself to serve as king regent until his return, or until Ram's return. The famous king Vikramaditya once sat on a throne which base was made of the images of 32 yoginis. These yoginis taunted the king with our desired traits of what a king should be, and eventually he possessed all these traits and created an era of peace, prosperity, generosity, and justice. In Jainism, mothers of future Jinas, heroes, kings, and sages dream of a throne as well, which is a good tidbit of information to have. Seda Bandhasana, or the bridge lock pose, will be the next pose we discuss. In the Ramayana, Ram raised a monkey army who built a bridge across the sea that connected to the coast of Lanka. This was with a year of exile. This is how he defeated Ravana and rescuing Sita brought her home. In the Thai version of the Ramayana, Hanuman grew his size so his tail could repair the broken bridge and allow the monkey army to cross the bridge safely. This ties strongly with the Buddha to be in the Jatakis, stretching across 2 trees and forming a bridge, helping other monkeys escape. In the Mahabharata, a bridge of arrows is shot by the archers Arjuna, connecting earth and sky for Indra to descend. And in Jainism, the concept of a bridge is very important, for there is a bridge that takes us out of the realm of rebirth. Hanasana, the pose to Hanuman. Hanuman was a mighty yogi and a great monkey, who was known for his intelligence, being a poet, musician, and a magician as well. The sun was Hanuman's tutor, and as tuition to his tutoring, he had to help Sugriva, the sun's child, who was kicked out of Vali's house, whom was his half-brother. So Sugriva was kicked out of Vali's house, who was his half-brother, and as tuition, Hanuman had to help him. Ram, introduced by Hanuman to Sugriva, made a pact that Sugriva would be king of the monkeys, and in return he would help Ram build a monkey army. Hanuman healed Ram's younger brother, who was poisoned by arrows in battle with herbs from a mountain. Ram's brother was known as Lakshman. Many consider Hanuman to be the form of Shiva, and he is worshipped all across schools of Hinduism. The Buddha to be as Mahakapi, a great monkey, protected his troops, and the 4th Jina of this eon has a monkey symbol. To save time, we are going to skip the moments where I pause to allow questions. I hope that is acceptable for you, and if you need to, pause the video, and ask away. Talasana, scales pose. Narada, a sage who loved to create trouble, was once offered a gift by the 8 wives of Krishna. He demanded Krishna himself The wives asked if they could give Narada something of equal value, as they didn't want to give away their husband. Scales were brought out, and nothing was equal to Krishna until one wife, Rukmini, offered a sprig of the Tulsa plant as her symbol of devotion, and this symbol outbalanced Krishna on the scale. 33, 34. Okay. Page 35. We're on the last page. This idea of balance is important in Indic mythology. It is the balance of the hermit's spiritual gaze and the material gaze of the householder in Hinduism. In Buddhism, it is the balance of compassion and wisdom, and in Western mythology, there is even a balance of fairness and justice. So Scales pose brings to mind a lot of balancing. Halasana, the plow pose. Sita, Ram's future wife, was found by King Janaka of Mithila while plowing the sacred field of the goddess using a golden hoe. The plow is associated with Balaram, who uses it to divert the river Yamuna. The serpent Nada takes the form of Balaram when Vishnu takes the form of Krishna, who is Balaram. He is Krishna's older brother. Revata, the sister of a giant who ruled Dwarka, was proposed to marry Balaram and exchanged for Dwarka, the city. When she was touched by a plow to bend down, she shrank to normal size, and thus Dwarka, after their marriage, became the refuge of Krishna and Balaram. And Balaram is said to be a form of Shiva in many Hindu schools of thought. Bhujapita Asana, the shoulder presser pose. Bhima, the strongest of 5 brothers, carried his 4 brothers and mother to safety in the Mahabharata, away from the Karunas who wanted to murder them. In the Ramayana, Shravan Kumar carried a pole with 2 baskets, in each basket his mother and father. In the Jatakis, Jama carries his blind parents in baskets hanging from bamboo. And the bamboo pole and baskets are a metaphor for worldly responsibility one must fulfill before liberated from the cycle of rebirth. Vadiyana Asana, the horse pose. In one story, the son, as a stallion, mated with his wife, and this led to a horse-headed twin gods named Ashwini twins. Indra refused to teach them the secret lore of Sama, and placed a curse in case anyone else taught them. Dadich, a sage, agreed to teach them if they could bypass this curse. So they switched Dadich's head with that of a horse, and upon teaching them, his head exploded. However, they reattached his human head, and he was alive again. And the Passionids, the sage Yagnavalkya, approached the sun for knowledge. The sun, in the form of a horse, gave it to him. In the Puranas, Vishnu, a horse named Hayagriva, rescues the Vedas and shares their wisdom with humanity. In Jain mythology, the horse is the symbol of the 3rd Jina of this eon, and Buddha is also closely associated with horses, as he used a horse to escape his palace to a forest where he attained awareness or Buddhahood. And the final pose we will discuss, leaving us 10 minutes for a yoga practice, is Pindasana, the ball pose. Vishnu, in the form of an enchantress called Mohini, tossed a ball one hand to the other before gods and demons. This made them wanting to do anything for her, and this Vishnu as an enchantress. She desired to distribute the nectar of immortality between them, which they agreed, foolishly, to some of their dismay, because he tricked the Asuras, he only gave it to the Devas. This tension created the never-ending battle between the Asuras and the Devas, and there's 64 sanas, and their stories or backgrounds or facts taken from the myth about the pose or about the animal and why it is important. And yeah, we are done here for this. I will create one more video for this project just to do it, just because I could probably stretch out like 10 minutes talking if I wanted to, but my voice is tired. I just talked for an hour and 50 minutes. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. It's a fantastic read. 64 Asanas in our stories. You can get it on Amazon. And yeah, I gained a lot of information, insight, and wisdom into Indic mythology and Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and the likes. So, with this, we end my 300-hour Seva project, and I fantastically hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and I hope you take care of yourself. Namaste, yogis. I'll see you in part 4 for some physical